Doesn't get much better than that, does it?
Not really. And let's start with the AFC first. You know, that first game, 27-20, New England beats Kansas City. A lot of criticism for Andy Reid and the Chiefs again late in that game. What could they and what should they have done differently?
Well, I mean, Eagles fans look at that going, we recognize this to be a fact. It was becoming a Twitter meme. I was talking to people on Twitter and things. It was almost a meme that, this is Andy Reid's clock management. He gets to the end of the game, and it wouldn't be an Andy Reid playoff game if he didn't find a way to screw up the clock management. Mind you, Kansas City wasn't a better team that game, and New England did outplay them. But, it wouldn't be an Andy Reid game if he didn't do that. And it showed also that Kansas City, for as good as they've improved this year, 29 out of their 40 vertical receptions went to Macklin. They had 11 to all the other receivers. So, he's basically their vertical passing game. He just wasn't what he needed to be for them to have a vertical passing game. So Kansas City, as good as they are, they need another downfield threat because they can't do it with just one guy.
Yeah, do you think the Chiefs I know they won 11 in a row and everything, but did they overachieve? Was that a team that you think should have been happy to be in that situation, or is that a legitimately good team?
Legitimately good team, but when you've got that sort of weakness, you've got when you only have one vertical threat, and and your quarterback is really as good as Smith has been a number of times in the past. I've defended him a lot in the past, but he's got some limitations in the passing game. If you can't go vertical in the NFL, if you can't stretch the ball downfield, you're going to be hard-pressed to win some games in the playoffs. You're going to be hard-pressed to win as many in a row as they were going to need to win to get to the Super Bowl. So they should be happy with their season, but they ought to look at it also as, hey, we got the most we could out of this talent level, and unless we improve our talent level, we're not going further. So
New England moves on. Brady, has a great game. The Patriots are going to face Denver, who late in that game, were you thinking at all about a quarterback change for Denver?
No, there's no need, because the type of game they were trying to win, dink and dunk, let our defense and running game win the game, and we'll hit some passes and things were nailed. They were trying to win the ball or win the game of vertical passing. So, and that's why credit as people try to give him for as good as he played, and he did play solid enough as a backup. He still forces passes in the coverage. He still at times there were still things that he had problems with. So I wouldn't be putting him in that situation going, I want him to come into this kind of a pressure situation and pull things out, because I think he could have made things worse.
Yeah, Denver, and Pittsburgh really a shell of themselves. I think Roethlisberger really exceeded expectations, but without the running game that they're accustomed to, even with Le'Veon Bell out for most of the year, D'Angelo Williams has had a great year, but he had not been there for the playoffs. And then, of course, how big was losing Brown? Do you think it's a different game with those two guys?
I said on Twitter that Denver, if they win the Super Bowl, they ought to give Vontaze Burfict a Super Bowl ring, because he's the reason they won that game. You put Antonio Brown in that lineup, and mind you, I think the tackle that he made on Bell, the injured Bell earlier in the season, I think it was a kind of a bulldog tackle. You don't need, and I mean like you're bulldogging somebody down like you would say in a rodeo match. It's an unnecessary kind of tackle you make if you're not concerned about injuring your opponent. So, it knocks two of their best players out over the course of the season. I think Pittsburgh goes to the Super Bowl this year if they have both those guys the whole year. KC Joyner is with us, looking back at the games. The two AFC games, very competitive, good stuff. The two NFC games, very competitive for the most part. We'll get into Carolina, Seattle in a minute, but Arizona kind of lucky to hang on there. They did not play their best game. And then, of course, the unbelievable Hail Mary that sends it to overtime, and then kind of anticlimactic in overtime. But that game there, Arizona, not its best game, but they survived. Does that tell you a lot about them? It does, but it says this is what they're going to have to overcome in the process. Carson Palmer's risk-taking. I'm going to be covering it for an ESPN Insider article later this week about the relative risk-taking levels of all the different quarterbacks. He's always been that sort of a quarterback, forcing passes in the coverage and things. That's the reason the Cardinals are winning the game. And I can tell you this, when he does that scramble in overtime, Palmer scrambles to his right, and he throws across the field, the very first thought that went to my head is, oh, no, he just threw a pick six. He's thrown late and back across the middle. Obviously that wasn't what happened, but it's a concern that you have with him that he's going to try and make those sorts of plays at those sorts of times. So Arizona got lucky to get away with it that time, and I don't know if they're going to be able to do that for two more games.
They got a tough opponent in front of them here, and obviously they're going to take on Carolina, who got out to a 31-0 lead. Did they put it in cruise control? What happened that Seattle almost was able to come back from that?
For the course for Carolina, and you could hear Cam Newton kind of discussing it after the game. He was intimating it. He didn't necessarily come out and definitely say, he was like, I think we got too conservative. He was making hints to that we really didn't play. We kind of thought we were, just going to cruise control the game. Yeah, that's what they did. They've done that before. They did it in a couple of the games earlier this season. Like Washington was an instance of that. They had, games where they got out to lead. They would just get the foot to the floor. They win the thing going away, but they let the other team come back, and they've gotten away with it for now. But I just say this. They've got Arizona coming in this week, and Arizona's got a big vertical game. I know we're going to talk about these games later this week, but Carolina got away with being able to, not give up big vertical passes, despite having two of their top cornerbacks on in this game. That's going to be something they got to be worried about down the road.
Yeah, and, I thought for Carolina, you're right. I think they just ran out and then, put it in kind of cruise control there. And, they just got real conservative, like you see a lot of teams do. But, the turf in that game was a big factor, too. It looked like things changed a lot in the second half of that game. A lot of people talking about that. But for you, the four games, all virtually pretty competitive. What was what did you take from the weekend? What was the storyline of the weekend moving forward?
The healthy teams are the ones that are winning, for one, and for two, I think the reason that we're going to talk about risk-taking is that all these quarterbacks, every one of them is still in the playoffs right now, has had some kind of an issue of risk-taking. Even Brady, where he's taken more chances of passes this year than he has in past years, he's very safe with the ball, but not compared to what he's done in past years. And I think over the course of the AFC or the championship games, Super Bowl, I think that's going to be a big storyline, is which quarterback is making mistakes to lose the games. I think with all these players playing the way they are, that's going to be a major factor.
All right, more on these games on Thursday's show with Casey is looking back at the weekend. Really good games, a lot of competitive games, great plays. Of course, the biggest storyline of the biggest play of the weekend doesn't even end up helping Green Bay out. Another Hail Mary pass, but they fall down. And, of course, we've got the 4 championship matchup set we'll discuss later on with KC Joyner. Thanks, pal.
Yeah, man.